Welcome back, everyone. If there is one single thing that has undeniably shaped India's geography, its deep-rooted culture, and its booming economy, it is absolutely the water. It's no wonder India is rightfully called the land of rivers. Today we're diving straight into an explainer on the monumental waterways that literally serve as the lifelines of the nation. We're going to break down the top 10 longest rivers in India, strictly looking at the data and the fascinating geography that makes them so incredibly crucial. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll establish exactly why India is the land of rivers. Then, we'll look at the mighty, sacred Ganges. After that, we head down to the giant rivers of the south, check out some fascinating westward flows and massive tributaries, and finally, wrap things up with a look at some truly ancient and unique rivers. Okay, let's dive right in. Kicking things off with our first focus, understanding the foundation of these vital waterways.
Before we get to the actual rankings, we really need to understand why these water bodies matter so much. They're not just blue lines on a map, right? They're actively powering agriculture, giving us vital drinking water, generating serious hydroelectricity, and sustaining hundreds of millions of livelihoods. And to truly grasp how they do this, you've got to know that India's river systems basically have two very distinct personalities. First up, you have the Himalayan rivers. These guys originate way up in the snowy peaks and are perennial, meaning they flow year-round because they're constantly fed by melting glaciers. Then, on the flip side, you have the peninsular rivers starting down in the Deccan Plateau. These are largely rain-fed, which means their water levels and lifespans are heavily dictated by the monsoon seasons.
Now, looking at the top 10 list, we are ranking these giants based strictly on their length within India. It's really crucial to note that while some of these rivers have a massive total length across the Asian continent, our focus for this explainer is entirely on their domestic footprint. That distinction is exactly what defines their localized impact on India's landscape and economy. Moving right along, let's talk about the undisputed giant of the nation, the mighty and sacred Ganges. We're starting at the very top of the list with a river that holds absolutely unmatched significance, both geographically and culturally. 2,525 kilometers. That is the massive stretch of the Ganges River. It's the longest and largest river fully enclosed within the Indian subcontinent. It kicks off its epic journey high up at the Gangotri Glacier, officially starting where the Bhagirathi and Alaknanda rivers meet. The sheer scale of the Ganges is wild. It acts like a massive artery pumping across northern India, winding through Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and West Bengal. It eventually crosses into Bangladesh, where it takes the name Padma, before finally emptying into the Bay of Bengal. And along the way, it's fed by a staggering network of major tributaries. We're talking rivers like the Yamuna, the Son, and the Gumti. But the source material also points out a very serious ecological reality here. Despite being the most sacred river in Hindu traditions, the Ganges is facing some immense contamination challenges, and this pollution is a huge threat to crucial biodiversity. We're looking at severe risks to over 140 different fish species, 90 amphibian species, and critically endangered mammals like the Ganges river dolphin. Let's pivot now and head south, exploring the giant peninsular rivers that completely dominate that region. Leaving the snowy Himalayas and heading down to the Deccan Plateau, we find the second and third longest rivers, trailing just behind the Ganges. Coming in at number 2 is the Godavari, which is actually often called the Dakshin Ganga, or South Ganges, and that's followed closely by the Krishna River. Clocking in at 1,464 kilometers, the Godavari easily claims that number 2 spot. This massive waterway begins its long journey all the way over in Triambeshwar in Maharashtra. And let me tell you, these two southern giants do some incredible heavy lifting for the region. The Godavari cuts right across Chhattisgarh, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh, picking up water from tributaries like the Purna and Indravati. Then you've got the Krishna River, the third longest in the country at 1,400 kilometers. Starting in Mahabaleshwar, it acts as a massive source of irrigation that essentially feeds the populations of Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh, all supported by its own network of tributaries like the Bhima and Tungabhadra. The source text actually uses this really beautiful phrase, Garden of Southern India, to describe the delta of our number 9 river, the Cauvery. Spanning 800 kilometers, the Cauvery rises in the Western Ghats and flows southeast. Right before it empties into the Bay of Bengal, it shatters into this wide, incredibly fertile delta of distributaries, totally earning that stunning nickname. All right, next up, westward flows and tributaries, because as you'll see, not every river plays by the same rules. See, most of India's rivers naturally drain eastward into the Bay of Bengal, but there are a few fascinating rule breakers. The Narmada River, sitting at number 5 on our list with a length of 1,312 kilometers, is widely known as the lifeline of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. Originating from Amarkantak, what makes the Narmada so geographically unique is that it flows entirely westward. Plus, it's deeply woven into ancient texts like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, making it one of the holiest rivers in the country.
It's really interesting to contrast two very different but totally vital rivers here. The Tapti, our number 10 river at 724 kilometers, is one of the only other peninsular rivers that joins the Narmada and flowing east to west, eventually draining into the Arabian Sea. But contrast that with our number 4 river, the Yamuna. At 1,376 kilometers, the Yamuna is actually the longest tributary river in India. It flows parallel to the Ganges and eventually just merges right into it, meaning this huge waterway never actually hits the sea itself.
Finally, we come to our last grouping: ancient and unique rivers with massive historical footprints. Here, we're looking at rivers with a huge international presence. The Indus and the Brahmaputra are absolute behemoths in terms of total length, 3,180 kilometers and 2,900 kilometers respectively. But here's the catch: they only spend a fraction of that epic journey within India's actual borders. The Indus travels 1,114 kilometers inside India, putting it at number 6, while the Brahmaputra travels 916 kilometers inside the country, placing it at number 7. Honestly, the historical majesty of the Indus River cannot be overstated. Starting way up at Mansarovar Lake, it harbored one of the oldest and most flourishing human settlements on Earth, the Indus Valley Civilization. In fact, the very name of the country, India, is directly tied to this monumental waterway as it crosses through Ladakh, Gilgit, and Baltistan before flowing into Pakistan. Then there's the Brahmaputra, which has some incredibly unique traits. Starting from the Yangtze Glacier in Tibet, it is actually the sole river in India culturally considered to be male. As it traverses through Assam, flowing right past the famous Kaziranga National Park, it houses Majuli. And Majuli isn't just any river island, it's a massive island that actually became the very first in India to be made an official district. How cool is that? We're going to finish our deep dive with our number 8 river, the 890-kilometer Mahanadi. Historically, the Mahanadi was infamous for catastrophic floods, earning it the pretty grim nickname, the Distress of Odisha. But the source highlights a massive triumph of human engineering here. The construction of the modern Hirakud Dam, along with a complex system of check dams, completely transformed this river, bringing its once devastating flows well under control. And that brings us to the end of our geographical breakdown. From the perennial glacial flows of the Himalayas to the vast rain-fed deltas of the south, these 10 rivers literally built a civilization. But as the data on contamination and flooding shows us, they are powerful yet fragile. So, I'll leave you with this to think about. With hundreds of millions of people relying on these sacred waters for their very survival, how will India protect and manage its vital lifelines for the next generation? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.